What up, what up, what up? We back. It's been a minute, but I'm glad to be back. And today, I have a very special video for y'all. We'll be going over the college football season, and specifically, everything that's happened in week 3. The important games, the headlines, or I guess takeaways I had from those games, and also whatever college football news there was this past week. So, without further ado, let's get it. Let's start off the video by talking about college football realignment. The Pac 12 dropped a bombshell this past week when they decided to add Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State. Now, personally, I think those are great adds. And obviously, they saved the conference because if they didn't add any more teams, the conference would be dead. And Oregon State and Washington State would have to find a different conference to join. But those are some great adds, in my opinion. You'll still definitely need to add at least 2 more to even be eligible to be an FBS conference because they need 8 teams. Right now they have 6 teams. But I'm thinking they add 4 more to at least get to 10. They could potentially add 6 more to get to 12, but I feel like they'll keep it slow for now. Add 4 more, get to 10, and just stay there for a little bit and wait to see what happens with the ACC. Now, for those 4 teams, I don't expect Cal and Stanford to be there, right? They left the Pac 12 for a reason. They did not want to align with teams like Oregon State, Washington State, or any of the Mountain West teams because they really prioritize academics. And obviously, those 4 schools aren't the biggest academic power horses, right? Or powerhouses. They're not slouches either, but Cal and Stanford are definitely one of the top, or 2 of the top specifically, academic institutions in the nation. So that's why they wanted to move to the ACC so it could align with Duke, UNC, Virginia, etc. So I don't think they're going to be back. And along with that, they did sign to the ACC grant of rights. So unless they find a way out of it, I don't think they'd find their way back, even if they wanted to. So no Cal and Stanford, right? Now we get into the potential AAC teams that the Pac-12 could poach. Tulane and Memphis are really appealing options. It's just I don't think they're gonna move to the Pac-12 because of how uncertain the media rights deal and the TV deal is, right? I think Tulane and Memphis are gonna wait for a potentially better conference like the ACC or the Big 12 to extend an invite. Now, I know this might be kind of risky because we don't know if the ACC or Big 12 will add Tulane or Memphis. It's just I don't think those programs want to go to another group of 5 conference. I think they want to go to an actual Power 4 conference. So as a result, I think they're going to wait to try and get an invite from the Big 12 or the ACC. I think the ACC is more plausible right now because they're in talks about there are talks about Florida State, Clemson, maybe UNC or NC State leaving the conference. So I think the ACC is likely to add those teams once the supposed realignment happens with them, but we'll just have to wait and see with that. So we get to the teams that I think they'll add. I think they're going to add UNLV from the Mountain West because they're an up-and-coming program. They have a really good head coach in Barry Odom. They've been successful these past 2 years, and they're in one of the best media markets in the U.S. Las Vegas is a great media market, so I think that'd be a great ad for them. It's just I have seen that there are some issues with adding UNLV when you don't add Nevada because they're both obviously state public universities, and there might be some politics involved with not breaking up those 2. So I think what happens is the Pac-12 maybe just bites the bullet and just adds Nevada along with UNLV. But if they do find a way to not add Nevada, I think they'll just add UNLV because Nevada's not really that enticing of a program right now. And they have had success in the past, obviously, but they're just not really doing that well right now. So I think UNLV will be one of the first teams. Nevada, but if they can get away with that, adding Nevada, I think they'll try and add Hawaii, instead because they could tap into the Honolulu market and the Hawaii market. wouldn't be a terrible ad in my opinion. They've had periods of amazing success, especially in the 2000s. They haven't really kept that up now, but I think with the Pac 12 focusing on creating this West specific conference, it might make sense to add a team like Hawaii. And it would just be really fun, in my opinion. So I think they could add Hawaii. I think they'd add Wyoming as well because they're probably one of the better teams in the Mountain West still there. They've had periods of really good success. They've been a really solid Mountain West team for the past decade. So I think Wyoming would be a great add. And now for the final team, I think they will add an American team in UTSA. I think UTSA is more likely than Memphis or Tulane to go to the Pac-12 because I don't think the ACC or the Big 12 is going to add UTSA right now, or like when they want to align or do their realignment. So I think UTSA just goes to the Pac-12 and just takes the chance at getting into a better conference, albeit it's still being like essentially a group of 5 conference, right? So I'd say those are my 4 teams: UNLV, Hawaii, Wyoming, and UTSA. And I'd say those are the teams that the Pac-12 tries to add. Along with that, I think the Mountain West loses another team in Air Force because I think the Air Force goes to the AAC, and there have been talks about that, like really like recently, like even today. So I think the AAC adds Air Force to join Army and Navy, so you can have all the service academies in the AAC, and it kind of like offsets for the loss of UTSA as of now. So I think Air Force to the AAC. Now the Mountain West has a lot of teams that they lost, right? They already lost those 4 teams that I like at the beginning to the Pac-12. I'm thinking they're going to lose at least 3 more to the Pac-12 and then 1 more to the AAC. So they'd be losing 8 of their teams. They'd be very watered down. So I think what happens is they add a couple like Conference USA teams in like UTEP and New Mexico State because those teams have been wanting to get into the Mountain West for a while. And because of that, they're going to try to do it now so they can at least like shore up their conference with some FBS teams. But I think the majority of their teams will have to come from the FCS. I think this is finally where we see powerhouses like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana, and Montana State finally move up. I think along with those teams, you could also see a team like Sacramento State, which has been trying to move up from FCS to FBS recently. I could see them make the jump to the Mountain West. Could also see a team like Idaho move back up into the Mountain West. So there's a lot of ways this could go. But I think it's likely that the Mountain West shores up its conference with a couple FBS teams from the Conference USA, and then also getting a bunch of really good FCS teams up there. And to help out with the loss of 2 members, I think Conference USA could then add a couple more FCS members, right? They're already adding Delaware and Missouri State next year, but since they're going to lose 2 more members, I think they're going to add like a Tarleton State or like a Chattanooga. So something really up-and-coming FCS teams that could make the jump and possibly do really good in the Conference USA. And I guess another team of note that's not really like football related, but it is basketball related, is Gonzaga, because they've been flirting with the Pac-12 for the longest time. And I could see the Pac-12 finally add them as like a basketball-only member just to try and like help out with like the basketball like play in that conference. So I could definitely see that happen too. But with all that conference talk out of the way, let's get into the games. Now, let's get into Thursday's games. There's only like one important game, to be honest. The other game was kind of a blowout. The important game was Arizona State versus Texas State. And my takeaway is that Arizona State's a sneaky good team. And they could low-key contend for like a Big 12 championship game. I don't think they're going to win it, no. But I could very well see them win a lot of games in the Big 12 this year and make it like a race, essentially, for the Big 12 championship game. Because they beat a really good Texas State team on the road in a packed environment. So I think this team's really good. Their offenses look good. They have a great running back, a great quarterback, really good weapons. The defense definitely has some issues, but they clutched up when they needed to. So Arizona State is a good team. Now onto Friday's slate. K-State is also legit. I think K-State is the best team in the Big 12, and they showed it. They beat a really good Arizona team, and specifically, an electric Arizona offense was held to just 7 points against the K-State defense. Players like Noah Fifita, Ted McMillan couldn't do much against that K-State defense. So the defense is great, the offense is great. Avery Johnson looks legit. K-State could be a playoff team. Now the other Kansas team didn't do so well on Friday. Kansas lost at home to UNLV. The offense looked anemic, and it has looked anemic essentially this entire season so far, without their old offense coordinator. Jalen Daniels turned the ball over. Kansas as a whole is struggling right now. I don't really know what the fix is. They have the talent to be a really good team. They just haven't put it together this year. UNLV, on the other hand, just pulled off a great upset against a really good Kansas team on the road. UNLV is a sneaky good Group of 5 team, and I could very well see them make the college football playoff. They have one of the most impressive wins of the season right now over Kansas. They, along with Northern Illinois, in my opinion, are the two best teams out of the Group of 5 so far. Obviously, there's so many games to play, but as of now, those two are probably up there for playoff hopefuls in terms of the Group of 5. Now on to Saturday's slate. Let's go over all the big games. Essentially, I'll go over all the top 25 games, and I'll start off with the Georgia game. Kentucky's defense balled out. They held Georgia to essentially minimal points. They shut down that offense. But then again, Kentucky's offense did absolutely nothing. They completely let them down. I didn't really like the decision to not go for it on Kentucky's last offensive drive because that essentially screwed them over. So, really massive letdown because that defense played amazing. And Georgia didn't look that good. So, maybe Georgia isn't as good as we thought. Or what I think is more likely is that Georgia kind of overlooked Kentucky. So, I think Georgia will be fine. But Kentucky really had a chance to pull off a massive upset. And they just couldn't close it out. Texas is elite. And Texas was back last year. They are more so back now. Another thing I want to talk about is Arch Manning looked fantastic. And obviously, it sucks that Quinn Ewers got hurt. Hope he recovers and is back on the field. But man, oh man, did Arch Manning take advantage of that opportunity. Again, he played UTSA, but he still balled out. He showed the legs. He showed the arm. Now, Quinn Ewers is expected to miss a couple weeks. But if Arch Manning balls out in those couple of weeks, we may potentially have a QB controversy in Texas. Now on to Bama's game. Bama kind of just steamrolled Wisconsin, so it's not much to talk about. Jalen Milroe looks good. This offense looks good. That's about it. Same thing with Ole Miss. Jackson and Dart looks good. The offense looked great. The defense did well enough. Now on to Mizzou. This was a lot closer than I expected. It was a lot closer than it needed to be. But the defense clutched up what it needed to. The offense did just enough to win. And I think Boston College is a really, really good team. Obviously, they were ranked before the game, but I think they're sneaky ACC title game contenders. They could very well make it all the way to a title game in the ACC. They've looked great so far in what has been a down year for the conference, but Boston College is a good team. And on to Tennessee. Again, not much to talk about. They steamrolled a much worse team, but the offense does look great. Nico looks amazing. This team could be a dark horse contender in the SEC. Maybe not even dark horse. They could just be a contender in the SEC. On to Oregon. Oregon finally looks good. They looked bad against Idaho, bad against Boise State. Now they finally played a great game. So excited to see where they go from here, because they need to play games like this if they want to make the playoffs and be an actual national championship contender. Now on to Miami. Cam Ward looked great. He's played like a Heisman, and offense looked great. There's not much else to say. They steamrolled a bad team. And then on to Utah. Now, Utah looked really bad for like 3 quarters of that game. Even in the fourth quarter, they didn't really pull away until like late. But I get that they played on the road against Utah State, but Utah State's not a good team. Utah just steamrolled them. This team is in trouble without Cam Rising, and I don't think they're going to beat Oklahoma State this week. So they need Cam Rising to be back to make a run, because without him, they're cooked. Now in Oklahoma State, they are a college football playoff contender. They, in my opinion, are the second best team in the Big 12 behind K-State. I think they're going to steamroll Utah this week as long as Utah doesn't have Cam Rising. If they do have Cam Rising, it's going to be a good game, but I still think Oklahoma State wins that game. But yeah, Oklahoma State looks good. On to Oklahoma. I can't say the same. I think this is going to be a massive down year for Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold has his flashes, but he also has his stupid moments. Like that pick six at the end of the game almost ruined it for them, and they almost lost because of it. But as a whole, I think Oklahoma's going to struggle a lot in the SEC. They already almost lost to Houston and Tulane, and they have to go through essentially a gauntlet of a schedule in the SEC. I don't think it's going to end well for them. So I think it's going to be a bad year for them, and that's actually my big takeaway for them. After Oklahoma, we got LSU. They barely hung on, and it was a very, very spotty game in terms of like how it was reffed. I won't really say that's the reason LSU won, but it was pretty badly called in my opinion. In terms of South Carolina, they really need Sellers to be healthy. If their starting QB Sellers is healthy for that entire game, I think they win. It's just the fact that he got hurt in the middle of it that made it harder for them to win. But even then, they still almost won. So, South Carolina is definitely going to be a lot better than I expected this year. I feel bad for that team that they lost, but especially the way that they did, but I think they'll be fine. LSU, again, they look okay. I feel like this team might lose like 3 or 4 games, maybe even 5. I think this team was massively overrated to start the year. And obviously that opening like loss to USC showed that, and even this game showed it too. They'll be decent, but I don't think they'll be like anything special. On to Michigan. Now Michigan's my favorite team, but man oh man, Davis Warren is not it. I'm so glad the team decided to start Alex Orji, or they're deciding to start Alex Orji against USC, because at least he like has some scrambling ability. He showed something, you know. Davis Warren, for some reason, cannot throw the ball properly, right? He had 3 interceptions against a bad Arkansas State team. And that was the only reason the game was even close. We were steamrolling them. Donovan Edwards had a decent game. The run game was doing great. The offensive line was pushing their D-line. But for some reason, Davis Warren decides to just be bad. So I'm glad that we're starting Orji. We'll see how it turns out. I think it's going to be a bad year for Michigan, or at least comparatively. We're not going to contend for anything this year. I think we lose maybe like 3 games this year. And it sucks, but I guess that's what happens when you don't have your like quarterback figured out. But yeah, Michigan's not looking too good. Notre Dame. They are the kings of the bounce back game. They did this again. They've done this before. They lost against Marshall at home, and then bounced back really well. This time they lose at home to Northern Illinois, and they bounce back again. So, good bounce back. They should not have lost to Northern Illinois, but this team might be good. Nebraska. They are sneaky Big Ten contenders. They've been looking good. The defense looks great. Dylan Raiola might be the real deal. This team is good and might make it to the Big Ten championship game. I wouldn't say for sure, but they could. Now Washington State. They're 3-0. Just beat Washington. And they have a very easy schedule the rest of the way. At least manageable schedule, you know? If they go undefeated, the question is, do they make the college football playoff? I don't know. I guess we'll find out, but they could very well make a push for the CFP. Now on to Memphis. Memphis, of course, they like beat what is not a bad, like it's not a great win, right? Like because FSU is just all right, they're not really a great team right now, but Memphis still won on the road, against a Power 4 team. They very well could be AAC like contenders and very well CFP contenders. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they were. Now on to Pitt. They beat a really good West Virginia team at home. They came back, won that game. Eli Holstein looks incredible. He might be the real deal for them. Pitt could be a sneaky, really good ACC team. They could contend for the championship. Obviously, there's so much football to be played, but as of right now, Pitt looks really good. Indiana, another 3-0 team. They, again, beat a bad UCLA team, but still a really dominant win. Maybe Kurt Signetti has something cooking in Indiana. Because it's been a while since they've been really good. And they had that one COVID year, but that's about it. They might be back. Or I guess, might be as good as they'll ever be. UCF. They beat a really good TCU team on the road. Close, tightly fought game. Came back and won it. They're also 3-0. I think they'll be a bowl team this year. I wouldn't say that they're a contender because of how deep and good the Big 12 is, but I think they should be a solid team. Toledo absolutely destroyed Mississippi State on the road. It's going to be a very, very long season for Mississippi State. They're getting destroyed by Toledo at home. And they have to play through the SEC schedule. It's not looking good for them down there, but good win for Toledo. It's always cool to see a Group of 5 team beat a Power 5 team, or I guess Power 4 now, like especially on the road. So that was pretty cool to see. The last game I'll talk about, Colorado State. Colorado dominated a really bad CSU team. I know CSU was talking all that talk, but they definitely did not back it up. Colorado looks decent. I still think they're going to have a bad year. The team is not talented enough outside of like Shador, Travis Hunter, DJ Horn. Other than those 3 players, the rest of the team is pretty weak. The offensive line is not legit. They got pushed around and shoved around against Nebraska and even against North Dakota State to a certain extent. So they'll be bad. But they'll be one of the most fun, bad teams you'll ever see. That's all we have for today, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below what you guys think. Do you agree with me? What do you think about the Pac-12's expansion? I guess realignment in general. Along with what do you think about my takeaways on this past week in college football? Whatever it is, let me know. That being said, that's all we have for today. And until next time.